All right, everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the channel, and we are live right now with VyFinance, VyFi. We're going to be talking with Steven Ward today. A little AMA, kind of see what they have going on. A new kind of development within what they're doing. So first things first, welcome, and Steven, tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's get this conversation going.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, look, I've been working in crypto now for 4 years. I did, oh God, 4.5. Time really flies. I feel like I'm getting old in this industry. It actually feels like dog years. It's been four years, but it feels like it's been 28. So I started in this industry about 4.5 years ago after coming from TradFi. My background in TradFi was mostly working as a hedge fund trader and working as a stockbroker. From there, I basically, went through a pretty standard career in the traditional finance route. But in 2017, I really started trading cryptos. I went up and down to the high heaven with the 2017 cycle, 16, 17, and I lost pretty much everything I made, which was great, actually. There was a really good experience. I learned a lot. And from there, I started doing DeFi really in 2019. My background as a trader is a bonds trader, mostly focused on interest rate swaps. And I discovered that the mathematics that ran particularly liquidity pools and liquidity mining is very similar to the mathematics that underpins interest rate swaps. So I started going really hard into exactly that, liquidity mining, sort of made it my niche of my trading niche. And from trading it from 2019, into 2020, I had a lot of issues with the way that it was designed and a lot of things that were going on. So I kind of just decided to make my own platform and implement my own solutions to things. And here we are 4 years later.
Awesome. Okay, so I got to ask you, what was the vision behind VyFi? Kind of what, and what would you like to add before we get into kind of the new stuff coming? And how does that kind of differentiate from, the other DEXs, Cardano? I don't think maybe a lot of people watching are familiar with what all they have to offer on the Cardano blockchain. Maybe add a little bit to that, and what's like the longer term plan with what you guys are rolling out and have
Absolutely. So the original vision was very much focused around building a DEX that gives users tools just like traders would have when you're working in traditional finance. So when I'm at a hedge fund, and this is why I don't trade stocks anymore, right? When I'm at a hedge fund, I'm up against people that are dealing with tooling that is so much more advanced than what your average retail trader is going to have access to. And as a result of this, you're going to find yourself really sort of stuck in that the people around you or people that you're trading against have got far more information in a far more accurate and timely manner. So, and we'll get into this when we're talking about our newer stuff that we're implementing, but functionally my big concept or my big thing that motivated me was to try and deliver more advanced tooling to those that want to engage with liquidity pool mining. And with our new upgrades that are coming, we're finally able to actualize that original concept. And I should say that, secondly, there is a caveat to that. Secondly, we have been in Cardano now for 4 years, and we really pride ourselves on being the most Cardano DEX. So most other products within the Cardano ecosystem, and I don't want to throw any shade at any of them, hence I won't name any names, but a lot of the products within the Cardano ecosystem really focus on trying to build dApps that look like the dApps that already exist on Ethereum, that look like the dApps that exist on any other blockchain, Sol, wherever it may be, any EVM blockchain. So as a result, they put in a lot of implementations that are very difficult or don't make much sense for the Cardano blockchain to try and keep the user experience as similar as possible to what you would have on Ethereum or what you'd have on the other blockchains. We've done away with that philosophy, and we really are trying to build the most Cardano DEX possible, implementing Cardano's technology to the advantages the Cardano technology gives you. So let me give you a few examples of that. First of all, we have stakeless LP farming. So very similar to how Cardano has got stakeless rewards. If you provide, non-custodial staking, if you provide LP or liquidity into VyFi's LPs, you don't actually have to stake your LPs into farm to earn anything. You just, as soon as the LPs hit your wallet, you're automatically farming, right? And that just takes place like this. Now, what advantage that really provides us is that classically, LPs have always been thought of this token that you receive after you provide liquidity, and then you never think about it again. You just throw it into a farm, and then it starts farming, and that's it. You never hear about it again until you want to remove your liquidity. But by allowing these liquidity pool tokens to remain in your wallet, we can now begin to build functions that unlock the value that's contained within those LP tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Because those LP tokens are an actual token which contain underlying value. They have 50%, in our case, more commonly than not, they have 50% Cardano and 50% another token. And another thing that's really important to note is that they have lower risk than holding a token outright. People always complain about impermanent loss because when the market's going up, you don't make as much money. But the part about impermanent loss that people generally don't talk about very often is that when the market's going down, you lose less money, right? So you make money slower on the upside, but you lose money slower on the downside, thereby creating a hedge against your current position. And I know a lot of degens aren't necessarily the biggest fan of hedging, but when you're dealing with a decent portfolio, hedging is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. So that's one example of how we're implementing Cardano's technology to do something that no one else does, right? Because Cardano allows us to do it in a way that you can't do it anywhere else. But yeah, so I guess that's where I would say that's our core fundamental drivers, right? First, it's about trying to bring as much advanced tooling to users as possible to make the trading experience as succinct and as simple as possible. And secondly, it's about implementing Cardano's technology to give us as many advanced tools as we can that can only be achieved using Cardano's technology.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess the next thing I think that, the audience would want to know too, is a lot of people are familiar with the VyFi token and the DEX and then the token and kind of how all that meshes and kind of, plays out.
Comes together.
Because a lot of people may care about the token, they might care about the DEX, and they might care about both. So kind of just add your vision to that and why that's important to understand the VyFi token and the DEX if you want to get involved with VyFi.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest issues that I was trying to solve within, and I still am, to be fair, within the DEX space is that really heavy inflationary mechanism that exists within any sort of farming token, right? So we've built our token a little bit differently to how most DEX tokens are built. First of all, we have the longest farming supply of any DEX in crypto. That's not just in Cardano, that's in all of crypto. We currently have 40 years worth of farming supply, which means that at the current rate that we're farming, we can probably farm for longer than I'm going to be alive for.
Yeah.
Right. So that farm is for at least another generation. We've got farm. So that's something that's very uncommon. The next closest competitor is actually about 8.5, 9 years. And that's by QuickSwap on Polygon. Now, when we look at our supply, it's being managed differently. But we also implemented the first and only smart contract based distributive mechanism on the blockchain. And you've been showing it around. If you go to back to our website,
okay,
please, and you go to the bar. Oh, you're already there. Perfect. That's the first ever smart contract distributive mechanism on Cardano. So what this essentially is you place your VyFi into the bar and it mints you X VyFi. Could you please press the view serves button? These fees get collected across our DEX whilst the DEX is being used. Now, whilst the DEX is being used and these fees are being collected, we have a trigger, and the trigger is random, that randomly then uses these fees to buy VyFi back from the market and deposit that bought VyFi into the bar. But when the bar deposits the VyFi from having been bought from the market, it doesn't mint any XVyFi. So what this means is that the value of XVyFi against VyFi is always going up. So we can see that, when was that? 24th, 12th, a day, 24 hours ago, sorry. We had a serve of 35,000 VyFi. So what that means, if you exit that for me, please. There's a little X in the corner, yeah. Thank you. And now put in 100 VyFi in the VyFi box underneath. Yep. So if you put in 100 VyFi, at the moment it mints 80, let's call it 80 XVyFi. Could you press that little button in the middle to reverse it? That means that if I burn 80 XVyFi, I get 100 VyFi. But after each serve, that number of VyFi that you're going to receive for the burn goes up. In other words, just by holding XVyFi, you're automatically getting distributed 1/3 of all the fees that are being produced on the DEX. And those fees aren't just being, that VyFi that you're being delivered isn't just being minted, but it's being bought from the DEX using the fees that have been accrued. So if we look in the last, so we take 1/3 of the fees, which is 0.01% of every 0.1% of every trade, sorry. So that means that if we look at the last week, we've had almost 10 million in volume in the last week. That means we're going to, in the next week, be delivering almost 10,000 USD worth of VyFi directly to the bar to holders that have staked their VyFi. So this is the first and only smart contract distributed, smart contract based distributed mechanism on Cardano. It is all automatic and it is all functioning for all the fee sources on our DEX.
Interesting.
So this is one of the ways that we are able to essentially deliver back value to the users who hold our token. But most importantly, we're able to continuously put buy pressure back into our liquidity pool to give some kind of smoother farming experience. And when we look at the amount of VyFi that we've bought in the last month, for example, we've bought back almost 40% of the total farm that's being delivered. So that means that the net result on our market is going to be less severe than if you weren't buying 40% of the total farm.
Interesting. Now, I was reading, there's giveaways with the bar as well. Is that part of it as well?
So the bar, I'm not quite sure what you mean by giveaways. We have done a few giveaways in the past, like competitions and things of the sort. But I would say that they're special events. What you can do, though, I think, and this is what I think you might mean, there's an option at the bar which is serving the bar, which means that the community can actually donate their VyFi to the bar to increase the value of XVyFi. So it's not quite a burn because it's not getting burnt, but it's distributing your VyFi to the entire community. So if you do go back to the main bar, you can actually have a look at how much the community has given to the bar, just out of their generosity. It is very small, but if you hover over community right there, so the community has given 26,221 VyFi, which is a little over 2,600 Cardano. And that's if you press that button, serve the bar, the VyFi that you put in is going to be donated and distributed to everybody in the bar.
Interesting. All right. Okay. Well, that's one of the hot features about VyFi. Okay. And did you want to talk about kind of the Plutus V3 a little bit? I know that's a big.
That's a big one. Yeah. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Let's start a little bit further back, right, than just the Plutus V3. the building on Cardano is difficult, right? It's not an easy blockchain to build on. And one of the things that makes it so difficult to build on is the continual usage of what are called dependencies. And a dependency is functionally some code base that isn't yours, right? It's like it doesn't belong to us, it doesn't belong to whoever's using it, but rather it is a code base that you need to use to perform certain functions within your dApp. Now, in Cardano, your average dApp is dealing with easily upwards of 10 dependencies at once. And that's kind of just been the design that our ecosystem has built over the last 4 years in terms of the construction process. Now, we spent the last sort of year and a half, 2 years, really studying the current dApp design on Cardano and how it's currently being implemented. And we have we have sort of rebuilt that process from the ground up and have built out a brand new, a brand new, completely void, or it doesn't have a single dependency involved, way of putting together dApps on Cardano. So what's the effects of this? So from like an optimization perspective, what this means is that when you're dealing with the average DEX on Cardano, you're dealing with somewhere, when you execute a transaction, of between 60 and 80,000 lines of code would be a fairly standard sort of transaction on a DEX. We've got our new Plutus V3 DEX down to 2,000 lines of code. So we're talking about an improvement of upwards of 25x more, 35x in terms of the amount of code that we've optimized on. And the way that we've been able to do this is by implementing, and sorry, I'm getting a little bit techie here, but I am going to bring myself way back in a moment. We have implemented a brand new language that hasn't been used for building on Cardano before, called JAI, J-A-I. And this language is very low-level language that allows us some very strong powers of optimization, functionally. And by doing this, we have been able to greatly improve the way in which DEXs, or the way in which I would say dApps in general on Cardano, are structured. And this is a structure that we're actually going to be releasing to the public, and we're going to be making this open sourced, right? So anyone else in the future that wants to build a dApp is able to follow the process that we put together when building out our Plutus V3 and save themselves a lot of time, effort, and energy, and also a lot of risk, because you're not using other people's code bases to make sure yours works. Now, to go into some more of the, the concrete parts of what we've actually done. The first one that I'm really proud of is, of course, reduction of cost. So one of the big one of the big realities of running a transaction is that the bigger the transaction is, the more the transaction costs. If you have more memory, it becomes more expensive to run it on the blockchain. But the beauty of what we've done is that since we've managed to get our actual executionable code down to 2,000 lines, the actual memory of the transaction is incredibly small. And that means that our blockchain fees are incredibly small when we run it. And I'm talking the fees to run a transaction, a swap on Cardano, the actual blockchain fees to run the swap on the Cardano, on our V3 liquidity pool, is looking to be about the exact same price as what it costs to just send Cardano to somebody. So about 0.17 Cardano, right? That's a reduction of more than 50% on the current costs from any DEX that are trying to run transactions. And a DEX to run a transaction, we have to run 2 at once. So it's not just once, it happens twice. Then we've got ourselves improvement in data handling. So there's a Cardano improvement proposal, or CIP, called CIP 85. This is all about implementing something called data types, and I won't go into the technicalities of it, but functionally to request data on the blockchain is a very difficult thing to do, right? Like very, very difficult thing to do on Cardano in particular. And this essentially allows us some degree of data handling that we don't normally have when dealing with Plutus V3, Plutus V2 or Plutus V1. This allows us to really improve the speed of our DEX and really allows us to improve even further the memory that the transactions take up on the blockchain. And I should add, we are the first ever project on Cardano that's been able to implement these data types into a product ever. Because it can't be done using the Icon language as of yet. Icon hasn't implemented it because it was very difficult or too difficult to implement. You can't do it using Plutus Core or Pluto. In fact, there's no language that implements these data types. We had to create it ourselves. So this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to build on Plutus V3, because none of the existing languages have actually implemented Plutus V3 into their core libraries, and that hasn't taken place yet. I don't know when that will take place, but as a result of that, we kind of had to restructure things from the ground up to actually get it to work. Or to make it happen. And in doing so, we have really pushed forwards the tech on Cardano. Then I'm going to stop there for a moment because there's already a lot, right? This is all the sort of techie sides of things. But at its core, it's improved fees, improved speed, and which results in a greater improvement of the users, a greater user experience. And then there's also our favorite one, which is it allows us to bring in much more complex DeFi and interesting DeFi tools, which is the thing that I want to talk about next.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get into that. First, I got a question I got to ask you, but I was going to save it for last. So I talk Cardano every single day on my channel. A lot of people watching are here because of that. And obviously you're here to raise awareness and to bring more people into VyFi. So probably the biggest question and kind of, I guess you would say, solution, right? We've talked about some of the pros, the benefits of VyFi for the Cardano blockchain. What's the advantages? Kind of what's the negativities of what they're trying to solve, what you guys are trying to solve, I should say. Okay, but what are the plans outside of this AMA to attract new users, right? That's probably been a problem, for anybody building. But Cardano in general, just kind of at face value, you're either, for it or you just, for some reason, you just don't like it. And I think it's maybe a little bit too scientific, I think is a word I use for most. It's not necessarily the flashiest car on the lot, but it's, sometimes in a lot of people's eyes and how they feel. For example, Cardano is one of my largest holdings for me personally. So what's the plan to attract more providers, more users, and just kind of, let VyFi be VyFi on the Cardano blockchain?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's really the big thing that we're working on right now behind the scenes, coming into our V3 launch. So one of the biggest things that I think we can do for ourselves is from our end, is build a system that's as easy to use as possible. And I have been talking about all this technical stuff, but the reality is that we implement all this really complex and technical stuff to make the user experience as simple as possible. Because by implementing these things, we're able to strip away steps that users would normally have to take and learn about and still allow them to engage. And then, of course, the next one is, and I think the most important one, is marketing surrounding the launch of our DEX. So we're starting to work with a lot of KOLs and a lot of influencers, yourself included. And we want to be creating as much of a chorus as we can around that launch of our DEX. We've also started up a community group that actually, if there's any of our community watching, I'd love to give them a shout out. We've got we call it the VARMY. I call it the VARMY, but we haven't officially called it that, the VyFi Army, which is just our community members that go out and are making noise for us on Twitter and on Discords and in places like YouTube when there's videos talking about us. And they're doing a fantastic job right now. And we've got a whole plan to grow that to get as many community members in there to assist us with that noise. So we're looking at essentially trying to build as much organic noise, or I should say grassroots noise, as possible directly from the community, whilst engaging with KOLs that we haven't previously engaged with, both within and outside of Cardano. And by engaging with this broader group of KOLs and having our community scream about us, we're hoping to be able to access a large audience, hopefully that hasn't seen VyFi before. Or if they have seen VyFi before, we're able to get them interested to come and look at our V3 DEX once that launches.
Awesome.
And I mean, I guess that sort of, let's start going into the more, I should have started with this really, the more user-centric sides, or the more user-centric upgrades that are coming to the DEX rather than jumping into the tech. I'm very excited about the technical side of things because of I guess you'd say the fundamental rethink to the way in which dApps need to be built that we're bringing to this blockchain. And we're going to be talking a lot about that in a lot of places soon and releasing a lot of information so other developers can start getting involved in learning. But we have really pushed this blockchain forwards in terms of the ease of putting together a dApp. I'm talking the amount of time that I think developers are going to be able to save putting together dApps using the system that we've developed is upwards of 50% of the time that it takes them to put together at the moment what they're building.
Gotcha.
Now, in terms of tooling that we're building out for users, because that's the most important part, what do the users get? First of all, and I started with this before, we're building a liquidity management system, one that doesn't actually exist in Cardano yet. And it allows you to essentially build portfolios around the risk that you want to be taking on with different projects. And the beauty of this is that it's going to be very simple and easy to read. It's just drop and drag. And it's built out of our non-custodial staking. So because we have non-custodial staking for our farms and the LP tokens remain in your wallet, that means that I can actually start to layer LP tokens on top of each other, right? Like a layer cake of LPs. I take the LP of ADA VyFi, and then I take the LP of ADA WMTX, and I can now put them into a liquidity pool together. So now my liquidity pool contains 25% VyFi, 25% WMTX, and 50% Cardano. And that means that I've now got a structure that holds a very different risk profile to just holding WMTX outright or just holding VyFi outright, because they're being traded against each other, which means you're now undergoing the impermanent risk of holding that pair, which means that your outright risk has reduced by 50%. You've only got half the risk of holding a single LP token. Now, what this means is that I've actually reduced my risk whilst bundling farms together. And when I create this new LP structure, which is half VyFi LP and half WMT LP, I'm going to get a new token that represents that LP. We call that one the L3 LP, so the layer 3 liquidity pool. And you've now got one token that is simultaneously holding and farming the VyFi liquidity pool and the WMT liquidity pool. And you could then take this token and you could match that token with, let's say, Cardano, for example. So now you've created a structure which is 12.5% VyFi, 12.5% WMT, and 75% Cardano, which means you've now got a structure which is just a little bit of these altcoins and a lot of Cardano. So you've got most of your risk held on the Cardano side rather than the altcoin side. And you could do the same with the altcoin side. You could build a portfolio which is mostly just the altcoin and just a little bit of Cardano to give you a small amount of hedging. Now, these structures sound really complex, or sound a little complex, but we're letting users put it together using a drop and drag mechanism, where you've got a list of your tokens on one side, you've got a little screen in the middle that allows you to just drag that token into the screen, and then it lets you just drag the tokens into the liquidity pool shape that you want to build. And above you, you get the little graphs. So you're going to get a pie chart, which is going to be telling you the percentage of each token that's being held. And you're going to be getting a star chart. It's called a polar chart, which is very similar to how they show experience in games. But it essentially tells you how far your impermanence risk is going out into each token, right? And the more impermanence risk you have towards one token, the closer that polar chart is going to be showing you that you've got impermanence risk in the direction of that token. That way, users are going to be able to build customized, hedged portfolios for themselves using the tokens that they hold. And the beauty of our system is, since it's all non-custodial farming, you can build yourself a complex hedging structure, and then you'll get one single token, so just one token to represent that entire hedging structure. You can either unravel it, which means I can actually trade that token through and get all the contents. So the token isn't a synthetic. The token truly holds the contents of those LPs. And secondly, that one token automatically farms all of the underlying structures at once. You don't have to put it into a farm. You're just instantly farming 5 liquidity pools simultaneously. So our liquidity manager is going to very easily let users put together portfolios that meet the risk profiles that they want, and then allows them to automatically farm all the containing assets inside that portfolio. In other words, we're creating an indexed for LP tokens that automatically earns you income.
Interesting.
So we're really excited about that one, right? That's going to be one of the biggest, I should say, developments that we've got coming in and into our V3 DEX. And this is going to be the most advanced liquidity management system on Cardano, because we're the only product that's able to implement this on Cardano, because we've implemented Cardano's tech in the way that Cardano was designed, which is non-custodial staking, right? So again, this is one of those consequences from building our product out using Cardano's design as our core philosophy, which then, by using Cardano's design as our core philosophy, has allowed us to build out this tooling that gives users far more power in how they manage their liquidity. Next, we've got the liquidity manager. We've got a plethora of order types. And that's something that, I think is needed for any trading station. You want to be able to do advanced orders. So we're going to be getting all the limit orders. We're going to be getting OCO, OTO, which is order trigger order, order cancel order. We're going to be getting trailing stop loss. All these order types that you would expect, you're going to be getting. But what's really cool about our order types is that, again, we have non-custodial LP farming, right? So what this means is that you can actually put your LPs into an order. You can keep farming while the LPs are in the order, and you can actually start setting up custom trading boundaries around your liquidity. So you could run a trailing stop loss for a liquidity pool token that says, if the market goes up by 20%, I want to exit my liquidity from this pool. And then that will automatically trigger when the market goes up by 20%, and then your liquidity will be removed from the pool for you. And then maybe you want to enter the liquidity when the market drops by 25%. So you can put in an order to say, I want to enter liquidity on this token when the market drops to this price. And then your liquidity will automatically engage once the market's entered that price. So that means that users are going to start to be able to build boundaries around which they want to trade their liquidity. Or I call it concentrated like liquidity, whereby the users are determining the price range around which their liquidity is executing. And this means that they have a lot more power in being able to set up their trades. So we're getting the most advanced liquidity manager on Cardano, as well as giving users the power to set up actual trading strategies on their liquidity pool tokens. So combined, this is going to give us what I honestly believe is the most advanced liquidity management in all of Cardano. This tooling has never been seen before on our blockchain, and we're bringing it to people, and we're going to be educating people on how to use it, because now we're bringing the power to people to be able to effectively manage their liquidity how they want with the risk that they want. So yeah, we're super excited about all of that with our liquidity. Thank you for letting me talk about it.
Yep. You have anything else before kind of maybe put a bow on this?
I will put a bow on it because unfortunately there's so much that I can go for ages.
Yes.
Then we are implementing a few new upgrades, a few other upgrades that are coming. We are merging our NFTs with our farms. So that means that we're essentially, it's not just our NFTs, it's our vaults, but we're allowing users to stake assets against the farm to boost the farm itself. And that's something that's been seen before, but what's different with our system is that and it's the vaults. Yeah, boom. And we actually just opened an NTX vault. If you know NTX, we've got an NTX vault and a Data vault that opened very recently. And of course, we've got the Kopi vault that we've had forever. Yeah, anywho's, there are some vaults. Now, these vaults are going to be merged with our farms, which means that by putting assets into these vaults, you're going to be improving the payout that you get for the liquidity of that project. And we're going to be working with quite a few projects and setting up very bespoke farming bonuses, whereby by staking different NFTs and tokens of these projects, you're going to be getting boosted farm in their liquidity pools on our platform. So that's something that we're super pumped for, and it's going to be creating the most bespoke farming experience on all of Cardano, because now projects are going to be able to create custom rewards being delivered to users for providing liquidity in exchange for staking different assets from across their ecosystem against that liquidity. So that's another new tool that we're bringing to the blockchains for projects to utilize. And then we're also upgrading, this will be the last one I mention, we're creating a brand new dashboard for users. It's not available just yet, but that dashboard that we're creating for users is very similar to a trading station, like you could imagine Bloomberg, whereby rather than, if you go to the DEX, please, for me, across the top, thank you. If you go to the DEX here, this is what a DEX mostly looks like on most platforms in crypto, right? If you just select any token on the bottom, please, doesn't really matter what it is. Where it's a select token on the bottom. Yeah, perfect. Boom, there we are. And then after you select the token, the chart comes up, and then you would put your trade into this side. And if you scroll down, you've got the trading history, right? And that's what we're looking at for most DEXs in the ecosystem. That's pretty stock standard design, right? But what we want to do is we want to create a user-focused dashboard whereby rather than dealing with one market at a time, you can essentially pull up as many markets as you want, right? And by pulling up as many markets as you want, you keep them on the screen, and then you trade with them all simultaneously. So, for example, you could pull up 10 different charts and put 10 different charts across your screen. You could pull up the actual trading, the trading square where you execute the trade. You could pull up 10 of those trading squares and put it underneath each of those 10 charts. You could then pull up the let's say just one of those trading histories, and then you can manually put in the trading history of whichever one you want to look up at any point in time. We're working with Cerberus to implement an analytics platform, essentially their analytics platform inside this. We're going to have another one for our liquidity manager, so you can put multiple liquidity managers up at once, your portfolio manager, the add and remove liquidity, the transaction cart. All of these things are going to be put down into cards, small little cards that the user can then customize their dashboard with. And if you've got 2 to 3 screens, you can get this dashboard going across 2 to 3 screens, and you could have conceivably 30 different charts up if that's what you wanted. So it's going to create a trading experience that feels a lot more like an actual hedge fund or like an actual trading platform than just feeling like a DEX with a single chart and some trading history, right? Because that doesn't give you a lot of information as a trader to be able to make accurate decisions quickly.
Interesting. All right.
So just in summary, just a really quick recap. Plutus V3, which to build Plutus V3, we've had to basically redesign from the bottom up the way in which apps are constructed to make them significantly more optimized and significantly more streamlined than what they have been in the past, right? And we've spent the last year and a half, 2 years really sort of researching, working and putting this together. And then the Plutus V3 came out about 8 months ago. And we've been working with that since the moment it came out. The second we were able to work with it, we were working with it. We've got our liquidity manager coming. We've got our bespoke order types coming, allowing users to really push their liquidity management up to the next level again from just our liquidity manager by doing actual liquidity trading strategies and implementing those automatically. And they can do that on index tokens from our liquidity manager. We've got ourselves our dashboard coming out to give users the most personalized trading experience they've ever had while using a DEX. We've got lower fees coming. We've got faster transactions coming. We've got lower memory being used on each of those transactions, the lowest memory that's ever been used on a trading transaction in all of Cardano. We've got ourselves our upgrades to our NFTs and merging our NFTs with our farms. And certainly last but not least, we've got our community out there getting really excited about all of this stuff that's coming. So thank you so much for giving me the time to talk about it. As you can see, the list is long and I'm super excited. And I know it can be a bit hard to sort of get your head around everything that's coming out, particularly in one quick 42-minute or 45-minute discussion. But we are really, really excited about all of it. And we're also writing up articles to break all of these things down one by one and bringing out videos for all of these bits that are coming out one by one. Because we understand that it's an information overload. But in summary, I can just say that there is a lot of exciting new things that the blockchain's never seen before and new tools that will give users more power to manage their risk than they've ever experienced on this blockchain.
Yep. And with Cardano's price doing well, the market's doing well. Let's hope for new users and the users that are there, to keep enriching within the DEX. And, thank you for taking the time to talk all this education. Very informative. And I know that the time zones are not easy, so appreciate it. And so I'm going to bed and you're waking up.
Thank you.
And, so just to kind of conclude, I'll share with you guys before we sign off kind of their socials, their website, where to find them, and just kind of one last thing to put a bow on it. What advice would you give to someone new to DeFi, to Cardano maybe even, who just wants to get involved with?
I would say your first step, if you want to get involved with DeFi, and it doesn't even have to be Cardano, it could just be any blockchain, right? But the first thing you need to do when you're getting involved with DeFi is be very, very open in the way you approach things, intellectually, I mean. Because when you're just getting started, you're going to be faced with a mountain of information that is coming at you like a ton of bricks, and you don't necessarily know how to sort through it all. I think everyone that's used DeFi has gone through that experience. So start with small amounts of money, and the real secret is to really just start clicking buttons. And you're going to make some mistakes, right? Like I've made some mistakes. I've stuffed up gas fees on Ethereum and spent $230 on a transaction that should have cost me $17, right? Like I think that's mistakes that everyone makes when you're learning how to do this stuff. Accept that you're going to make mistakes. Don't beat yourself up for it. Be intellectually curious. In other words, try and understand what you're actually doing. Don't just click buttons aimlessly, right? Like understand what the button is doing. But once you've understood it, don't be scared to click the button and just click the button. And then you'll find that after 6 months of clicking buttons, suddenly it makes sense.
That's pretty much spot on. I think we've all been there. So thanks
Absolutely.
again. I will share with you guys real quickly kind of what we have going on. Steven, thank you. This is their website, VyFi.io. If you want to, I'll put a link in the description in the comments. If you guys want to check them out, feel free. You know, a lot of information as well. So if you click the More tab, check out the docs. You can read all about VyFi. Check out what they have to offer. You can see all the links to their socials, white paper, documentation, all that good stuff. And we did talk a little bit about the Twitter page, X, whatever you want to call it. You can see kind of some of the events and mentions that they've been in. Also 27,000 plus followers. So if you haven't done so, make sure you give them a follow. Also follow me on X if you haven't done that. And please subscribe here on YouTube. And with that, Steven, thank you again. And we'll be talking soon. Hopefully we do it again. And we will keep an eye on VyFi and what they look to offer for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, mate. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you to everyone out there that's listening and for lending me your ears for this time. It really is always an honor whenever I have people giving me their time of day to listen to me speak. So thanks goes out to all of you guys as well.
Yep. All right. Well, have a good morning. I'm going to have a good night, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Talk soon.
All right. Thanks again.